Okay, so I'm going to talk about the rhythm and repetition and sound project. Okay, so in some ways, this one is just a continuation of where you had to doodle out the little scribble based off an adjective, but it's kind of a bigger version of it. Okay, so just like the other projects, I do want you to do some little thumbnail sketches. Okay, and again, I'll have you submit these. So I'm just going to sketch out a few here. And we'll do one more over here. Who knows? And again, you can do landscape or portrait mode. I don't really care. Whatever way works better is, that's the way you go with. Okay, so the idea is that you are trying to visually illustrate sound through shapes, through lines, through whatever you can throw on there. So again, you're not making a picture. You're not going to make it look like something. You are just trying to show what sound, meaning of sound, or what it would sound, what it would look like if you could translate sound into, something visual. Okay. And so, just like I mentioned in the slideshow, that, if it's like a squeaky bicycle, you don't want to see a bicycle in the picture. You want to describe and use shapes and lines and even colors. You can use color on this one of what that squeaky noise would be. Okay. Door slamming, you don't want to put a door in there. You want to put something that, shapes, lines, colors, textures, any of those things that would give meaning to what that sound sounds like. So you're translating sound into something visual. And again, you can go with a song. And so remember, if you're going with a song, don't focus on the meaning of the words, of the lyrics. Focus more on what it sounds like. Okay. You can kind of pick like an experience. So I'm just going to go with, driving in my car. So if I was like driving to campus, which I often do, okay, that would be what I'm going with. And so, I just kind of wrote out some things that I would hear, like the engine of my truck, the air conditioner. It's pretty hot outside, so I have the air on full blast. I play music on. There's been a little bit more wind off and on, and then of course as you're driving the wind, you kind of create your own wind. There's always other cars. Sometimes there's a bunch of idiots honking at you, or other people driving their cars. And there's probably other things in there, I don't know, there might even be rattles. My truck's not that old, but it, there's some things that rattle in there. Maybe my backpack falls over. I don't know. There's other noises in there. Okay. And so for this, I'll suggest that you start this way. Okay. So things like, let's say the wind, and you can even write out little words to help you describe that. So, in some ways, like I'd say, the wind is sort of soft. I don't know, it could sound kind of, it's kind of a steady sound. It doesn't really change too much. I wouldn't call it scratchy, but, I'll just put that word down anyways. It's got kind of a, milder, sounds. I'll put milder. Okay. I don't know, let's say with the rattles, or other, noise inside the cap. They're, kind of off and on. They're not steady. Okay. They're more quiet. Okay. They might be kind of sharp. Okay. And again, I can come up with more things. Let's say the engine of my truck. Okay. So that one's, especially my one truck, it's a little bit louder. It's like a deeper sound. Okay. It's different when I'm, driving faster or accelerating. and so it changes. And I have a hard time writing here. Okay. And let's see. I don't know. It's kind of got like a rumbly sound to it. Okay. So what I can do then is, and I could kind of skip coming up with the different words, but in some ways, where I think this helps you is you can just do kind of like you did on the assignment with the adjectives. You can sort of look at the actual thing you're thinking of, and then some of the words, and come up with something. So like for me, the wind, it might be a little more fluid, and kind of it's a little more steady. It sort of changes a bit, but again, it's not too dramatic and not too all over the place. Like I said, I sort of described it as being a little bit scratchy, and I don't know if I'd say it's scratchy, but it's it kind of changes a bit. So I don't know, I could add a little more bumps to a couple of these. Okay, and I know I didn't do like the AC yet or the music, and you would just do the same thing. And again, I'm just kind of doing these in landscape mode, and these are just, sort of like rough drafts. I'm just trying to come up with some ideas. I'm brainstorming. Okay, so I'm doing these. So the rattles, they are kind of sharp. They're not super loud, but they're kind of sharp. And so, I can kind of do stuff like this. I could, maybe I have little shapes that are kind of pointy, or whatever. It could be little shapes. I'll probably get a little too chaotic with that. I probably need a little bit less. But, that's the idea. So I think I'm going to take a few of them out. And then the engine, again, it's louder, right? A little bit of a deeper sound. It just kind of changes a little bit of this rumble. So, if something's kind of quiet to me, I'm going to go with like little shapes. There'll be little marks, something doesn't stand out that much. And then if something is louder, I'm going to go with something bigger. And so maybe it is more of these, kind of forms like this. I don't know. I'm just playing around with this, trying to figure out something that works. So, okay. I'm not sure I like that as much. Might be a little bit too pointy. It could be more of these like swirly shapes. That might be a little bit too organic. Again, I think it's, maybe a little more wavy. So maybe I'm getting there. Maybe it should be more, instead of thinking of it in terms of shapes, it's some kind of, form like that. Okay. And I could even, think of it as like maybe a brighter color, or just would be darker. Okay. But again, the idea I went through all this process is that I tried to put together some multiple sounds. And I just pick like driving to campus. You guys could pick anything you want to. And then again, here I listed out 6 different things. You could do like 4 different sounds that you would hear, while, being that experience. Like you could do, being at the beach, being at a park, being at a party, I don't know, going to the grocery store, watching TV. You could pick anything you want to, but then you just got to think about what sounds you would hear. Okay, and like I said, you could narrow it down to more like 4 if you want to. But same thing, I kind of pick the sounds and I try to write out, some descriptive words, and then I try to, turn that into some visual images. And again, if you look, I'm not trying to make it look like anything. It's just shapes and lines and different values. Okay. And so then what you can try to do is you can try to put these things together into one image. Okay. Because really in the end, what you're doing is you're going to make some kind of image like similar to your balance project. Okay. And for this one, it can be symmetrical, it could be symmetrical, it could be asymmetrical. But you're doing something similar that, like, so what you did for your balance project. Like you want it to balance, you want, You want to kind of spread things out. You don't want all the dark shapes on one side, all the light shapes on the other side. You do want to have some repetition in here, because that is what's going to create that rhythm. Again, that repetition creates this pace and this feeling that can help convey sound. So again, in a weird way, it's similar to your balance projects. But what happens in here now is that everything in there has a little more meaning to it. Okay, so again, you're not trying to be literal. You're not even trying to keep it linear. Okay, like a lot of times when people are doing like a song, they pick out a song and then they're trying to do the song. They're trying to do it in the order of the song. It doesn't have to be linear. It can just be something that sort of represents that. I always say, like, if you look at a movie poster, it doesn't tell you a literal linear telling of what happens in that movie. It just gives you images and bits and pieces of what happens in there, or who's in there, or what kind of style movie it is. Okay, and that's kind of what you're doing, but you're doing it in an abstract way. Okay, so again, I have this in portrait mode, or I just drew the rectangle standing up. And so, it's sort of like what I did there for the wind. And so I can, again, maybe have them a little bit more scratchy here and there, but I could do sort of the same thing. Okay, so I don't have to go as crazy as I did there. I only put 3 lines in. This sort of would represent the noise, either it's windy outside or just the wind, because the vehicle is moving and driving. And so it's kind of, you feel air going past your car. And then the rattles, again, they're sort of kind of off and on, but they're quiet and they're kind of sharp. So, something I could do, and again, similar to what I did there, is that, maybe a couple of them are a little more pointy, a little bit bigger, because they're a little bit noisier. But they're, they're sort of, kind of there in the background. And even the wind, I think, is more like in the background. Okay. Again, the engine, right? So, and I don't know, I sort of like what I did there, but I might kind of, do it more with some bigger shapes. And again, this is just my first attempt. It might be absolutely terrible, but that's okay. When you're sketching and trying to figure things out, that's sort of how it goes. And this will probably be pretty terrible. Okay. So these like darker shapes, I don't know, maybe more of the, the sound of the engine, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of connect them, because it's sort of steady. It gets louder in bits and pieces, but it's, kind of happens. Again, this is my first attempt. There's all kinds of ways to try to do this. And again, remember, you can use color. I'm not going to use color on the sketches, but you can use color. And you saw some examples of things that students did. Some were really colorful, some were really dark, some were more simple, some were more chaotic. Again, you got to think of what it is you're trying to convey. So I don't know, there's my first sketch. And you can see I just tried to throw elements of, these two and then kind of this in there. Okay, and so again, I can keep reworking the sketch. Keep playing around with things. So maybe, I don't know, maybe this time I'll start with, I sort of have this bigger forearm in the middle. Maybe I'll start with this one this time. And again, I'm making mine a little more chaotic, and I sort of threw this in the middle, right? So I'm already kind of creating a bit of symmetry, but again, I can kind of get away from that, or, it doesn't matter. I can have symmetry. If it's something that's a little more chaotic, asymmetry tends to be better. It kind of gets the meaning across more. If it's something that's a lot more controlled and structured, then symmetry might be better. But either way can work. Again, see, there's no cars, there's no trucks, there's no, I'm not putting pictures in here. I'm not drawing these to look like anything. I'm just drawing shapes and lines. Okay, I'm trying to convey what sound means through some of the shapes I threw in here. Okay, and let's see again, I don't know, let's put, that's where I can do maybe little triangles or little textures, and then we can have a little shape that's got some little scratchy marks on it. Okay, it's something I could draw a little better when I work on the big one. And this one too, you know, kind of like your balance projects, I do want you to try to use cutout paper more. Okay, so even if you're using color, you know, construction paper is good. So you can draw on this. You know, I would say try to use cutout shapes. So whether you're using construction paper or using the grayscale paper, try to make, we'll put this term loosely, like mostly out of cutout paper. Okay, so you can draw on here. You know, you can add things to it, but you know, if I was making it's to say I had arrived at this being, you know, what I'm going to make is the big version. It'd probably be better if I cut these shapes out of black paper. You know, I can maybe draw the lines, but then if I'm, you know, I don't know, for whatever reason, let's say I wanted to make this yellow, it'd be better if I cut that out of yellow paper instead of doing a, you know, not so good color pencil drawing. So, you know, again, the idea of like kind of collaging or, you know, cutting shapes out and gluing them on, I think that's better. And that's really what I would suggest you do for most of this, but feel free to use your pens or color pencils or any other tools you have to add things to it as you go on. And so, you know, and again, with this one, I just want to show you how to get started. Mostly, I'm not going to try to do a real finished image, because, you know, again, it's for you to figure out how you're going to try to convey sound into an image. So remember, you can use color, you know, try to do mostly cut out paper, but it's okay to keep it as black and white and grays, okay? I remember the full size image, you know, I think I put 14 by 17. I'm kind of forgetting now. I'm pretty sure I said 14 by 17. So, you know, you want this to be a little bit larger. Remember, you're not trying to make it look like something. You're trying to convey sound through shapes and lines and colors and textures and values and mark making and all these different things you can think of. And then that's it. And so, you know, really in the end, you're making something that is pleasing to look at. It's balanced, it's got repetition, everything feels like it goes together. And so, you know, that's kind of the simplified version. That's what you're doing. You're making something that looks visually pleasing, but there's a bit more meaning to it. And, you know, like, sort of like I said before with, and I'll use this extreme example. Say the idea is the image is supposed to be you sitting at the park, you know, on a quiet day, and, you know, there's a little bit of wind and not many people are there, and then you turn in something that's all like this, all crazy, you know, like that doesn't really convey that, okay? It doesn't convey the sounds, those quiet, you know, almost silent sounds you would hear at a park, okay? That conveys something exactly the opposite. I would say and this could, you know, this sort of, you know, gets the meaning across of like, you know, total chaos. So that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to do something that visually looks good, has a, you know, good design to it, but it also, you know, does the opposite of this. It you know, we get the impression of what's happening there. Like once you tell us what it, you know, if you were to tell somebody, hey, this is me sitting at the park, you know, and I'm hearing the birds and the, you know, a little bit of wind, and I don't know, maybe there's a little lake there in the water, and, you know, there's a few kids playing, it's kind of nice and quiet, and then you show them this, and they're like, yeah, that doesn't really feel like that at all. Okay, so, again, image that works well from a design standpoint, it's got a good composition, and, you know, balances, has repetition, and then, you know, the way it looks, you know, once you were to tell somebody what it is, you know, that what you drew gets that meaning across to them, okay? So, like I said, I kind of like making a list of words and then trying to come up with some little brainstorm ideas of how to convey each thing, and then you try to put them together, and, you know, you can do much better than my terrible little sketches there. And then once you've got, you know, a, thumbnail that you sketched out that you feel is working pretty good, then you can try to, start putting it together full size. And just look at the balance projects. You want whatever works well in your sketch to translate into the big one. Okay, so like, I've got this big giant shape in the middle, like almost like this octopus shape, and then something in the corner. Let's pretend this is the big one. I wouldn't want all of a sudden it to be like this little, skinny thing and then this little dot of a shape. Okay. Like if this is my sketch and then I go to do the big one, and my big one, it looks like that. See, it doesn't take up the same amount of space. So remember, you're sort of enlarging it. Things can change a bit. But things that worked well in your sketch, you want to have those translate to the big one. Okay.